started off with, I think, with management wishing to continuously monitor. I can't imagine somebody lower down in the organization decided they're going to start monitoring stuff. I mean, firstly, it's intrusive, it's expensive. We heard yesterday from the software vendors saying one of the pushbacks they're getting is that this stuff is expensive. So, I mean, I can see some innovations in an organization starting off at the bottom and bubbling up. I think that's sometimes a good model, but it seems specifically with something like continuous monitoring, where you're basically trying to serve the purposes of management and ultimately audit committees and things like that. It almost has to come from the top, unless you've got somebody with mission zeal at the bottom who's going to sell it to the top and then push it down.
That's exactly.
Bubble up thing working.
No, I agree with you, and what you're unless is exactly what I think is the process, that you have the knowledge at the bottom and the wherewithal at the top. And so how does that person at the bottom who really doesn't talk to the CEO on a daily basis, how does he get his word out? How does he convince those above him to go with him, to those above him to go with him, to a meeting of those above him? How does he percolate that knowledge up to the top? And while the IMA, the management accountant, the IMA member is not going to install the software, they're going to have to create the motivation to push this knowledge up to the top, and then it will become a dictate from the top that it should occur.
Difficult to see how that would work. I think if you've got a missionary down there, he's somehow got to get to the top.
Exactly.
Try and percolate it up. There are too many stops along the way.
There are.
And I'm going to go talk to my boss, and my boss says, well, yeah, am I actually going to be sell that one level up? And then you've got to sell another level up. I don't see it working.
But how does the CEO, I think we have someone who wants to answer the question for me.
I would suggest that it's the internal and external auditors to facilitate that, because it's their job to go down to the people at the bottom to find out what they're doing, to find out if the controls are in place, and they report up to management. They skip the levels. You know, I mean, it's a long process. You have to go manager to manager to start commit that. You're talking about years, you know, and hopefully you get something implemented.
My experience is I've been in this space for 3 years. If you look at the adoption rate, maybe it's 15%. It might be 5 or 10. If a salesperson could go meet with the CFO, show some PowerPoint, the ROI is incredible, where do I sign? Then the conference would need more space. So we sort of look at it as a Trojan horse sale, where you go into internal audit and you find a small carve-out kind of a project, as far as general ledger, go deep, open up some eyeballs, spread the gospel, and eventually it will creep up and become a larger sale. I don't know the org chart, the organization that you have in your mind in terms of quote how low it is, but it's probably internal audit manager, internal audit director. Let's do something. Let's talk it up in audit. Let's go see the controller. Let's go see shared services. I think Mary's spot on. Just let's accept that us in the internal audit community is one of those people that can be a champion.
Mary, knowing you said that IT professionals with prior experience or those with prior experience were not willing to be a champion. Did you get a couple of reasons as to why, or the drivers why they weren't willing to be a champion versus the person who did not know where ignorance is bliss?
I don't. I will go back and look at the written comments and see if I can pull anything out. I sort of have my own feeling, and my own feeling would be that they've been burned in the past with complex technology. And so they're the once burned, twice shy kind of situation, whereas those who have less experience have fewer scars and are more willing to put themselves out there because they haven't been knocked down before with this. But I don't have anything right now that can back that up other than intuition.
So I started out with a very modest objectives. Actually, this started at the AAA meeting, or actually just prior to the AAA meeting. And the basic question was, how could XBRL and add some synergy to continuous auditing? And being an old engineer, well, a middle-aged engineer, I guess. Actually, I was thinking about this morning. I did take this kind of as an engineering problem. My undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. And I always like to tell people that my big claim to fame is I trained the Iranians to maintain F-14s. And they're the only country that are still flying F-14s. Okay, I just want you to know that. Okay. So anyway, so I'm faced with this engineering problem, and in a lot of my research papers that I do, particularly when I do them for professional organizations because they like a lot of graphics, I like to do these heat maps, these things. You saw a few of them in presentations yesterday, where you got a matrix and the colors change as you go from left to right or whatever. So that was going to be my kind of objective, and I think it was Miklos that uses the term low-hanging fruit. I use the term cherry picking. It kind of means the same thing. It's like my objective is where are the easy spots where I could say, oh, here's continuous auditing, here's XBRL. These would be easy hits. Okay, and maybe over here, some places the hard hits. Like, don't even try. That combination just wouldn't make sense there. So I wanted to come up with dimensions of continuous auditing so I could do this kind of heat map, and oh, this was going to be beautiful, Well, the problem is you can't draw a 13-dimensional heat map on a piece of paper, right? I mean, 2 dimensions is easy. You can kind of fake the cube kind of thing and come up with a 3-dimensional thing. But the further you get into looking at continuous auditing, you realize it's this MN space kind of situation. I mean, we can't even agree on what continuous means. One of the speakers yesterday talked about, if he told his kids to keep their room cleaned, and they thought that meant doing it once every quarter, that just wouldn't be satisfactory, okay? And of course, so continuous, what the heck does that even mean? And this one fellow had this thing, he called it a malapropos. I don't even know how to say that word. Whatever. You can see the word there. Okay. It just means different things to different people. And then, of course, the whole auditing thing. So it's continuous auditing. And I was making a presentation. What day is today? Saturday. I guess it was. What day was that? It was Thursday. I was here. I made a presentation to the PhD students, and one of them asked me, "Well, what's your definition of continuous auditing versus continuous monitoring?" I go, "I don't know. What's your definition?" And in fact, one paper that I read, I just thought it was funny. I hope that person's not in the room. They were comparing continuous monitoring with continuous auditing. So they defined continuous monitoring, and I don't remember what the definition was, but they defined it. Then it said continuous auditing is continuous monitoring of auditing. In other words, they use continuous monitoring to define continuous auditing. Well, that's usually not a good way to define something by, if you're trying to differentiate between 2 things, you really shouldn't use the same words for the definition. Anyways, so as I kept digging into this, I realized that there's just way too many dimensions, okay? And interestingly enough, I found this kind of fascinating because the last time I was here, I presented a paper on data mining, okay? And what you realize when you start reading the literature on continuous auditing, there's a missing word in that. It really should be continuous population auditing, because almost every continuous auditing example is full auditing of some population, not a sample. Well, that's a whole new set of issues. When we were here, I believe it was 2 conferences ago, there was a senior partner from one of the accounting firms up here making a presentation, and Roger DeBrasini and I were in the audience. We were going to present a paper that same day on data mining. And we asked the fellow who's making the presentation, the senior partner, about data mining. He says, oh, our legal department says we cannot do data mining. It's way too risky. If we audit a complete population of a company and missed the smoking gun, we would have no defense.